Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something you might not think about, but it's super important: the files that actually power AI. We're going to unpack the whole shebang, from the formats that are surprisingly risky to the ones that are making AI faster, safer, and, available to pretty much everyone.
Okay, so let's get right into it. You go online, you find a cool AI model you want to try, and you hit download. What are you really getting in that file? Because it's way more than just a simple chunk of data. What's inside can have huge consequences for your computer's security and for how well the model even performs. Understanding this stuff isn't just for the pros, it's absolutely crucial.
All right, before we dive into all the different file types, let's just quickly break down what's usually inside one of these things. First up, you've got the weights. Think of this as the model's brain, all the learned knowledge, stored as millions or even billions of numbers. Then you have the architecture config. That's the blueprint, the structural design of the model. And finally, for language models, you've got the tokenizer, which is basically a translator that turns our words into numbers the model can work with. So those are the key ingredients.
Okay, let's get into our first section. Because how these ingredients are packaged, well, it can go very, very wrong. We're going to uncover a pretty shocking risk that's hiding in plain sight, right inside the most common default file format that's out there.
And this right here, this is where things get really interesting. There's this huge gap between what you think you're getting and what you could actually be getting. When you see a .pt file, that's a standard model from PyTorch, you're probably thinking, okay, cool, it's just the model's weights. But here's the truth. Because it uses a technology called Pickle, that file can secretly contain any executable Python code. And yeah, that includes the nasty stuff. Malicious code that could totally mess up your system.
And look, this isn't just me being paranoid. This is a direct warning right from the official documentation. It says, unpickling untrusted data can execute arbitrary code. And unpickling is just the fancy word for loading the file. So the very act of opening it could trigger some hidden malicious program. You really have to treat a pickle file from someone you don't trust like you would any random program you found on the internet.
Okay, so if the default way of doing things is that risky, what's the alternative, right? Well, this brings us to a much newer format, one that was literally built from the ground up to fix this exact problem, with both safety and speed in mind. So how does SafeTensors solve this? Well, it's just fundamentally different. It's a super simple format. It only stores the numbers, the weights, and a little bit of info about them. That's it. There's literally no way to hide executable code inside. And get this, as a bonus, it's also way faster to load because it can map the file straight into memory without hogging all your RAM. The fact that huge platforms like Hugging Face have made it their default really tells you everything. It's the new gold standard for sharing models safely.
But look, safety is huge, but it's not the whole story. What if your goal is a little different? What if you want to run one of these massive language models, but on your own laptop, right at home, without needing access to some giant server farm?
And that is exactly where GGUF comes into the picture. You can think of it as this all-in-one package designed for one thing: running AI locally with high performance. It's the magic behind tools like llama.cpp that you've probably heard of, the tools that let everyday people run these incredibly powerful models right on their own computers.
So, how do you actually use it? It's basically a three-step recipe. You grab the tools, you run a script to convert the model, but then here comes the really cool part. You quantize it. Now, quantization is a fancy word for a process that basically shrinks the model's weights down, making the file way smaller and way faster to run. And honestly, most of the time you barely even notice a difference in quality. It's kind of magic.
Okay, so we've talked about the big two, right? SafeTensors and GGUF. But they're not the only games in town. There's a whole world of other formats out there, and each one is like a specialized tool designed for a very specific job in the AI pipeline.
All right. Let's just quickly recap and put these side by side. You've got SafeTensors, that's for sharing stuff safely and quickly. GGUF, that's your go-to for running models on your own machine. Then you have ONNX. Think of that as a universal translator for when you need to deploy a model somewhere that doesn't use Python, like in a C++ or Java application. And then there's Pickle, the original, which, as we now know, you should really only be using for your own private experiments inside a place you totally trust.
All right, let's pull all of this together. We're going to create a super simple, practical playbook, a decision guide, so you know exactly which format to grab for whatever you're working on.
So here it is, the playbook. It really is this simple. Are you sharing a model with the world? Use SafeTensors, period. No question. It's safe, it's fast, it's the community standard. You want to run a big LLM on your own laptop? GGUF is your best friend. Convert it, quantize it, and go. Need to deploy your model into a production system that isn't based on Python? That's a job for ONNX. And what about just saving a quick training checkpoint for yourself on your own secure machine? Fine. Then, and only then, is it okay to use the old Pickle format.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that the file format you choose for your model, it's not just some tiny technical detail you can ignore. It is a massive decision. It affects your security, how fast your model runs, and even where you can use it. Get it right, and it's your biggest asset. But get it wrong, it could easily be your biggest vulnerability. So the question is, which will you choose?